they don't even actually have enough people around the country to like fill these camps. So even though they're only supposed to be keeping people there for 2 weeks at a time, it seems as though they're moving people from camp to camp to camp, like 2 weeks in Idaho, 2 weeks in Texas, none of which are actually being deported, but they are being put into these facilities to continue the grift across the country. This keeps a direct pipeline of money coming from the public dollars in the state of Florida into the bank accounts of people who support Florida Republicans.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup on the ground. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the leading independent news outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. Hey, it's Jordan. Happy to be joined by Cindy Banyai. You are a Florida activist, also running for the House in the state assembly in the 78th district. We'll get into that. But we interviewed you when we were on the ground down at the ICE Gestapo torture camp known as Alligator Alcatraz, which was shut down. Now it's been reopened due to judges' rulings. But a key issue here, because, you know, we keep hearing from Trump conservatives about waste, fraud, abuse. A key issue in this whole horrible prison camp was they said that the federal government was paying for this all along, and Florida taxpayers have no worries. And with that, you had hundreds of millions of dollars. The numbers are all over the place, but safely, I would say over $300 million has already been doled out, essentially to donors, contracting companies that donated to DeSantis, the Florida Attorney General, other Republicans. These were no bid contracts, so basically favors, and they will then give political bribes back to the politicians. But there has been no actual federal reimbursement. And now the judge's ruling last week that is allowing this to stay open, there's an interesting kind of hiccup in that. I'm going to read this. This is from Florida, NBC, South Florida. DeSantis' step towards victory on Alligator Alcatraz sets up a funding dilemma for Florida. You don't say. Florida Governor DeSantis facing a funding dilemma over the immigration detention center known as Alligator Alcatraz. Last week, an appellate court panel temporarily blocked a lower court decision ordering the governor's administration to wind down operations, but the ruling sets up a predicament. The state could either pass up federal reimbursement for hundreds of millions of dollars spent to build and operate the facility, or take the money and face an environmental review, which would risk halting the center's operations. That's because a majority of the 3-judge appellate panel decided for the time being the facility doesn't have to undergo a federally required environmental impact study normally needed to build on sensitive wetlands. Why? Because Florida has yet to receive federal money for the project. Cindy, as far as I know, I don't even think Florida has submitted for reimbursement. So seems to me you and your friends in Florida, including the growing MAGA voter base there, are going to be paying for this monstrosity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That is something that we had known from the very beginning, and activists like myself, as well as some of our Democratic electeds like Anna Escamani and Carlos Guillermo Smith, were talking a whole lot about, because there was no process that went through the federal legislature, which is what is necessary for a budgeted item in the state of Florida, a state budgeted item. And there was no application for the reimbursement from FEMA. And this was just undertaken as complete political theater by James Uthmeyer in the hopes that he could gin up his reelection. And he didn't even get elected the first time he was appointed, but
that's the Attorney General of Florida, for people.
Yeah, that's the Attorney General, who was appointed by Ron DeSantis after the CFO, Jimmy Patronis, won in the special election in Congressional District 1, the Matt Gaetz seat. And so he's looking to get excited and climb the MAGA ladder, right? And he's the one that coined Alligator Alcatraz, which is the official name, by the way. And he is, you know, looking to do that. By the way, Trump is supporting somebody else, so that's a whole nother little internal thing. But we knew that this was going to happen. We knew this was going to happen in Florida, and it's really disgusting and unfair to those of us who are living here, who have to abide by the balanced budget constitutional amendment in the state of Florida.
And I want to, obviously the morality of this place is the top issue, and I would describe it as torture. We've reported on prisoners being punished by being put out in what they call the box for hours in the hot sun, handcuffed. There's been prisoners who have fainted and were left there unconscious, nearly to die. There's been a whole lot of other stuff, deprivation of medicine for prisoners, verbal abuse, physical assault by guards. So we have that. But you also have, I mean, the numbers just came out. There was 1 million less jobs created than the government and the media told us over the last year.
Right.
People, basically the economy is shit. And in Florida, I mean, you tell me, property tax crisis, rent, housing is very expensive. And now, I mean, from what I'm reading, over $300 million in contracts have already been doled out. You have Florida's hiding contracts upwards of 225 million for this place. This was from CNN. Alligator Alcatraz, Florida may lose 218 million. This was when it was shut down temporarily. I mean, this is not a small amount that's going to have to be paid. And I'm assuming the contractors are going to want their money relatively quick. So how is Florida, I mean, left, right, all voters, this is going to dramatically make things worse as people are already suffering economically.
Oh yeah, especially within our Florida budget, because like I said, we have to have it balanced, right? We do not have any room. We're not like the federal government, right? The federal government has a little bit more room for emergency spending. That's also why moving FEMA to the states is a bad idea, because we don't have the excess in our budget to be able to handle and respond to things. So this is essentially upwards of $450 million has been spent or allocated or contracted out for the Alligator Alcatraz facility that is not going to be able to be replenished by the Florida budget and is going to have to come out of something, including healthcare, including education, including transportation and road updates, including infrastructure and our water. So this is not looking good for us fiscally in the state of Florida.
And can you talk about the effects so far? Because we basically have all of this money. And as far as I know, there was never more than like 1,000 prisoners there. Recently, It's been down to like 100. It might go up it might go up a little bit more now that a court has revived this. But you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars for a couple hundred prisoners with no running water. I mean, I have covered a lot of financial schemes and boondoggles. I can't think of a bigger boondoggle than all of this money. By the way, the guards are untrained. They don't even know how to check a pulse. We've reported that. But for nothing. I mean, it seems to me the money is being stolen from the taxpayers.
Yeah, that's a really great way to describe it. Yeah, this is all for show. This is all a way to get Ron DeSantis to get in front of Trump and say, look, we're doing this to out-Trump Trump on the immigration and mass deportation thing. And it is at the cost of the budget here in Florida, and it is 100% a boondoggle. So we have seen tons of connections between the contractors and the people who are actually involved in the building and the transportation of Alligator Alcatraz have direct contacts, direct donor relationships with Ron DeSantis and Florida Republicans. And these were no big contracts. Even the companies themselves took off the leadership and any information about the folks who have been involved from their websites because they were under scrutiny for what was going on at Alligator Alcatraz. And here's what we think is going on the ground here. And this is going to shock everybody because this is so very Florida. Florida has a culture of fraud. This kind of thing happens every day in every industry, and it's only been amplified by Ron DeSantis and his cronies as he's gathered power in Tallahassee. We are thinking that what they're going to do is they're not going to take the federal money, and they're probably going to ultimately end up closing down Alligator Alcatraz, because here's the thing, it costs money to run a facility, but you make money when you build it. So they're already talking about the Panhandle Pokey, right? And the deportation depot. So their idea, their grift at this point, as far as we can see, is building these places, doing a couple of like high profile raids and high profile things so it looks like they're doing a lot of stuff, and then kind of just let them crumble. And this keeps a direct pipeline of money coming from the public dollars in the state of Florida into the bank accounts of people who support Florida Republicans.
So if I have that right translated, this was kind of like get the train moving, but the real destination is constructing brand new torture camps, because that's where the real money is for contractors, engineers who are going to then donate back to the politicians.
Yep, 100%. That's what it's looking like because, like you said, the last reports that I heard that there was only about 200 inmates at Alligator Alcatraz. Obviously, the operations of it are just a disaster. We do also know, by the way, we've gotten reports from people inside the camp that they don't even actually have enough people around the country to like fill these camps. So even though they're only supposed to be keeping people there for 2 weeks at a time, it seems as though they're moving people from camp to camp to camp, like 2 weeks in Idaho, 2 weeks in Texas, 2 weeks in Florida, so that it gives this appearance there's all these people who are getting rounded up by ICE, none of which are actually being deported, but they are being put into these facilities to continue the grift across the country.
And I want to play this clip. This is from us on the ground. We were speaking with you and another activist on the environmental component of this, because this is the Everglades, which is very pristine. It's very important for Florida, but also the rest of the country environmentally.
We have such this like low amount of regulation around our environmental issues already. I'm not surprised that their plan is just to dump a bunch of shit in the Everglades. Where's their poop gonna go? I hate to ask the obvious question, but like, there's no septic system here.
It's, not only just the weather itself, they want to torture people with that, but just like the sewage situation that multiple people have already brought up. You can't put septic tanks in the middle of the Everglades.
People come here, they go on airboat rides, they go see the alligators, they kayak, they stand up paddleboard, they go to the beach. And you think about how delicate it is in terms of being a system. We got 1,000 people. You're going to drive how many miles? 70, 100 miles? Like, the logistics of this are stupid. What happens when you put people in an environment? There is poop, there is pee, there is lots of other kinds of waste. Where are we going to go? So how many more trucks are going to be driving down this road, right? Or are we just going to dump it in the Everglades? I don't know. There's not been a plan. This has been put forth as political theater.
The creeks and the water that flows through Big Cypress down to Everglades National Park into the Biscayne Aquifer, that's our drinking water.
So I play that because, not that I'm an expert on Florida politics, but DeSantis did run kind of sort of caring about the environment, about, conserving the Everglades. I even had some friends down there that are more left saying he's horrible, but at least he's decent on the environment. Well, the key here is if they don't get the federal funding, they don't have to do an environmental review. For those of you who remember, they didn't do an environmental impact study for the monstrous Dakota Access Pipeline in North Dakota. We all know the protests that happened with that. Well, Not that we know for sure, but I'm assuming there's already been environmental damage with this monstrosity. It sure seems like DeSantis does not care. And if they're not going to take federal funding, then they could continue. We don't know where they're dumping human waste. We don't know where they're dumping anything. We do know that they are hauling in massive tanks of water because they don't have running water.
Yep. Yeah. So we do know that there has been spillage, a ton of sewage spillage, which, by the way, happens anywhere that you have humans and human waste. And there's been flooding in the camps. This is the rainy season. This is the hurricane season here in Florida. And so you get tons of rain every single day. So even with the best run system, you're going to have some kind of runoff. So there's absolutely been sewage runoff and sewage leaks. And the way that they've been actually operationalizing that is putting it into tanks and then driving it over to the East Coast. So you're talking like shipping shit across the state for why, right? Like, they didn't have to put this facility here. They could have put it in a place where they could have managed this in a much more cost-effective and ecologically effective way. That was simply not the case. This was all a showpiece from the very, very beginning. And another thing that we didn't really think about as they were building the facility, but has been becoming a huge and ongoing problem since then, is the massive light pollution. You can see the light from Alligator Alcatraz because they keep on all these giant floodlights 24 hours a day, and it just absolutely destroys the natural habitat and the natural rhythms of night and day. The Big Cypress and the Everglades National Park were the first dark skies designations in the country. So this was a place that thrives at night and in darkness. That's what the animals and all of the wildlife there need. And it's been absolutely destroyed by Alligator Alcatraz. And it's a good thing to note right now that it was the environmental organizations that have led on this issue. Well, of course, we had our indigenous leaders in the Miccosukee tribe that came along, but it was the Center for Biological Diversity and the Friends of Everglades on environmental grounds that started the lawsuit that has got this kind of ping pong back and forth to it can't stay open to it can stay open with stipulations. It was environmental issues that led us to the place that we have been and has posed significant challenges to the operation of Alligator Alcatraz.
Can I just ask like a dummy question? I know they say there's no dumb questions. I don't know if I was a journalist in Florida and there was literally a torture camp, many call it a concentration camp, and a massive financial fraud being done to my taxpayers. That would kind of be the lead story every day on my newscasts, front pages. You know, there's plenty of spouses of these prisoners that want to talk. The prisoners themselves want to talk. I mean, there's been a couple. Miami Herald has done good work. There's been some independent outlets that have done good work. But by and large, I virtually see nothing about this massive financial boondoggle, the torture going on there. It's just been kind of normalized. And meanwhile, you have like MAGA people stopping for selfies in front of the Alligator Alcatraz prison sign. Can you kind of talk about like the psychological aspect? Where the fuck is the media? I mean, we know we know where the national media is. It's horrible. But where is the local media in Florida?
So I will say that my organization, I have a small organization called Big Mouth Media. You can see us at bigmouthmediafl.com. We have been doing some independent reporting on this because we have been in direct contact with the people and the families that have been incarcerated there, as well as the families and the community that have been affected, because that's also another huge issue as they're picking up people and leaving children in cars and dead dogs and so on and so forth. Check out the stories that we have on that, because it will break your heart to really truly understand what's going on with these mass deportations and these ICE raids. And I think also we have to consider the strategic location that the Alligator Alcatraz is in as well. They put it in this kind of central far-flung place because it's not quite Miami. It's not quite Southwest Florida, right? So it's very easy to be like out of mind for a lot of the local journalists. And I can say in Southwest Florida in particular, there is no political will to report on this. And unfortunately, that is handed down to the reporters who may be interested in this, but that just simply can't get their higher ups to care enough about it. I will tell you that that appeals case was moved to the jurisdiction here in Fort Myers, and there was no local coverage of it at all. I actually didn't even know that the hearing was happening in Fort Myers until it was already done. And that is what they wanted. Okay, that was part of the initial case. And what the state of Florida was pushing back against was that because the facility is owned by Miami-Dade County, but it's actually in Collier County. So which jurisdiction, judicial jurisdiction is that? That was a big question. They lobbied to have it moved over here to Southwest Florida to further bury the story and to be in friendly territory, both politically and what they saw on the appeals court there as well. So that is unfortunately the situation that we have here. It is out of the news cycle because there are so many people, by the way, who are profiting off it as well.
No political will to cover a torture camp that is scamming Florida taxpayers.
Yep.
Call it the free press for a reason. Cindy Banyai, tell people where they could find info about your campaign. You're running for Florida's House in the 78th district.
Yeah, that's right. So I am running over here in Fort Myers against genocide Jenna Persons Mulika, who her husband is a beneficiary of disaster relief fraudulent activity as well. And I can be found at cindybanier.com. I would love to have your support. I am running a Take Back Tally campaign and the No Shit campaign, in large part because of the Everglades discussion, because I am firmly believing that no one wants shit in their water. Right? I think 100% of us can agree with that. And we certainly don't want shit coming out of Tallahassee that's going to affect us. So I am working on that and making sure that we are putting actual Floridians and actual issues that we face every single day front and center.
And we will put that in the description, the link. I think that could go across the country. No shit in the water. Love it. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.